In 1985, The Return of the Living Dead rewrote the rulebook on zombies. Gone were the familiar rules of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, rules horror fans thought they could count on. The slow-moving corpses, the headshots that ended their rampage, the idea that destruction of the brain meant final death. In this world, nothing worked. The dead didn't just rise, they fought, clawed, and bit their way back to life over and over again, no matter what was done to them. And the reason was a single, nightmarish invention, a chemical compound called 2,4,5-Trioxin. The movie opens with a claim that the events we're about to see are based on a true story. Then, without warning, we're taken to a quiet evening at the Unita Medical Supply Warehouse in Louisville. Inside, a veteran warehouse worker named Frank tells the new kid, Freddy, about a government screw-up decades earlier. According to Frank, the U.S. Army developed 2,4,5-Trioxin as a powerful, industrial-strength chemical for use in defoliating marijuana crops, but during testing, it had an unexpected and horrifying side effect. It could reanimate dead tissue. Even worse, this reanimation wasn't mystical or biological in the traditional sense. It was chemical, a reaction at the cellular level. The moment trioxin touched any dead flesh, it triggered the muscles, tissues, and even individual body parts to move again. The chemical worked too well. The Army shut down the experiments, but not before some of the reanimated test subjects, including human cadavers, were accidentally shipped to the wrong place. In the film's world, that place was Unita Medical Supply, and those cadavers were sealed in heavy-duty steel drums, floating in a bath of trioxin gas. When Frank shows Freddy one of these drums in the basement, he slaps it to prove how sturdy it is. The impact cracks a seal, and in an instant, the nightmare begins. A hiss of escaping pressure fills the air. The gas sprays directly into Frank and Freddy's faces. The effects are immediate. The two men begin coughing violently as the trioxin fills the room, soaking into the cold storage units, the floor, and the preserved specimens in the warehouse. Even a dissected dog, split in half for training purposes, begins twitching and barking. This is the first terrifying truth of 2,4,5-Trioxin. It animates any dead tissue, no matter how small, no matter how damaged, no matter how incomplete. The second truth is even worse. It doesn't stop. In Romero's films, destroying the brain ended the threat because the zombie was driven by some form of central nervous system control. Here, the chemical overrides that limitation entirely. Burn the body, the chemical doesn't burn away. It aerosolizes. The particles rise with the smoke and drift with the wind. That's exactly what happens when Frank, Freddy, and their boss Bert panic and bring a reanimated cadaver to the mortuary, run by Ernie Kaltenbrunner. They decide the only logical move is to cremate it. Ernie reluctantly agrees, sliding the twitching remains into the furnace. The body burns, the muscles char, the bones turn to ash, but the trioxin in that body isn't destroyed. It's released. The smoke rises into the night sky, carrying the chemical into the clouds. Then nature does the rest. A sudden thunderstorm rolls in, and rain begins to fall on the nearby Resurrection Cemetery. Each droplet carries microscopic traces of trioxin down into the soil, where it seeps into the graves. The corpses below are saturated. Within minutes, the ground begins to heave and split. Dirty, skeletal hands push up through the mud. In this film's universe, there is no infected versus uninfected. There's only dead tissue in the presence of trioxin. It all comes back, always, and it comes back with awareness. The most chilling moment arrives when the survivors capture the upper half of a female corpse, stripped of skin in places, spine and ribcage exposed. She still writhes and snarls. When asked why she and the others crave brains, she answers in a raspy, almost pleading voice. The pain of being dead. It hurts to be dead. I can feel myself rotting. Eating brains makes the pain go away. This is the third horror of Trioxin. It doesn't just reanimate the body, it traps the mind inside. Every sensation of decay, every nerve firing in agony, is experienced consciously. For the reanimated, existence is nothing but suffering, and consuming brief relief from that pain. As the night spirals out of control, the survivors learn the final, hopeless truth. There is no killing a Trioxin zombie. Decapitation doesn't work. Dismemberment doesn't work. Each severed limb, each torn-off head, continues to move and attack independently. The US military has dealt with this before. At the end of the film, they locate the contaminated area and execute their standard containment protocol. A tactical nuclear strike. The explosion obliterates the immediate threat, but just like before, the heat and force of the blast send trioxin-laced particles high into the atmosphere, and when the rain falls again, it starts all over. In Return of the Living Dead, the dead don't stay dead because their reanimation is driven by an unrelenting chemically induced reaction. Trioxin doesn't tire, it doesn't expire, it doesn't care about damage to the brain or body. Once it's in the environment, the only true end is the end of everything it can touch. And in this world, that means the outbreak never really stops.